Okay, so we'll carry on with this analysis of some of Lady Macbeth's comments to Macbeth when she's emasculating him. So you can look at the devices. She used lots of exclamations. So it's shame itself and oh, proper stuff. Oh, come on. There's exclamations you could use to embed. She says the very painting of your fear. You're just putting it on. The particularly interesting bits in here, I think, are the language she uses here, where she says, these flaws and starts are imposters to true fear, a woman's story at a winter fire. So these are metaphors for Macbeth's sort of fears and conscience. So the simple way of saying it in terms of what image they create, the image would be, emasculation and manipulation. And you've written about that, you've probably talked about that before, so I'm not going to dwell too much on that. A more complicated or complex analysis of that, I would say to think about is, what are the common connotations, all right, of imposters and a story? So we were zooming in on imposters and a story. Okay. So the common connotations would be of story and imposters would be of deception and make-believe, all right? Making things up. That's where the link is there. So what? Where does this link? Especially to ambition. Well, isn't deception and making things up and telling stories, isn't that how they manipulated Macbeth to begin with? So I would make that link and think about how you'd explain that. But I've given you the basic notes there that you would need. You need to think how you put it into a full sentence. But that would be a nice way, I think, to interpret that in two ways. And that's probably not a typical interpretation, so it'd be worth doing. So which is manipulate Macbeth to begin with. All right. So this is the scene that seems to come up in more or less every single lesson from one of the lads. So this is where Lady Macbeth in her soliloquy. Okay, so this is when she's talking to the audience directly, sort of revealing her inmost thoughts. So what can we look at again? Well, she's talking to spirits, ask them to tend to her mortal thoughts. She talks about the dunner smoke of hell. So the links there would be to the supernatural. Okay, and you could perhaps make a quick link to the witches, only a quick one. You've also got lots of natural order sort of comments that come under. So she says, "Unsex me here." Okay, make me a man. She thinks about direst cruelty, so that's not a normal, healthy emotion, is it? She says, "Stop no compunctious visitings of nature." So that's the metaphor for a conscience. Okay, so stop my conscience. She says, "Come to my women's breasts and take my milk for gall." Okay, if you remember early on in the play, she talks about that milk idea as well. So you can think about, sort of maternal instincts and typical sort of feminine stereotype is being subverted. That means, subverted would be set against. All right. So a few things there for you thinking about. The metaphor there for the supernatural, the murdering ministers would be the evil spirits. So I'm not going to talk loads, but you should be looking about analysis and word level on your